How can I balance work and family life effectively?
How do I deal with my child talking back or being disrespectful?
How do I manage stress as a parent?
How much screen time is too much?
How do I teach my child responsibility?
How can I encourage my child?
How can I build a strong emotional connection
How do I
with my
discipline
child?
my
How can I
child?
monitor my child? How do I deal with my child knowledge back?
You know what? Let's talk about it.
I do have some questions here to kind of talk through. But before we really get to stuff that you guys asked previously, I will say this. A couple people had actually mentioned, and this morning as I was telling you guys, you can ask questions in the prayer request. Some people said, hey, I'm not going to be here, but here's my question. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to necessarily let them get their question asked until the end, okay? So if they didn't show up, shame on them. So this is what we are going to do.
Shame on them.
Yeah.
Which I required that Pastor Rick be up here. I was like, listen, I need to learn tonight too.
Yeah. So what I thought we would do, instead of going to the questions that were previously asked, is that we would just kind of open up, what if you guys have a question? So I've got a mic, we're kind of MC this moment, and then at the end, if you don't have any questions, we do have some questions here that I can answer, or that if y'all want a good answer, I'll do it. If you want them to answer, then we'll let them do it, okay?
First, second, third.
So, okay, hey, we'll start over here. Yeah.
So here's what, I don't want to not answer, but the Bible doesn't address this, right? Bible addresses a bigger picture. I would tell you that God's perfect plan never intended for this to happen. And this is just part of a broken world that we live in and that we have to learn to adjust to. But you're kind of assuming a role and responsibility that's really past your hands. You're doing the best you can as a grandma, but the responsibility is in the home, and you're the secondary home. Or maybe even the third home in that line, and doing the best you can. And I would tell you that what John said this morning would probably apply here. That's the ingredients you got. Let God worry about the recipe He puts together with it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's really good. I would just add to that. We do know that light is stronger than darkness. That's very clear in Scripture, and so I would be very confident in saying that the seeds that you're sowing in their life are far more impactful and life-changing than the seeds that they're getting anywhere else. There's a passage in Isaiah that says, just as the rain comes down from heaven and goes back to the clouds, it says, when my word goes forth, it never returns void. Mm-hmm. So I think you clinging to some of those thoughts and promises in Scripture that is literally saying, when the words of the Lord go forth, when you're reading verses over them, when they're coming to church and hearing sermons, those you can capture those and say, listen, the Bible says that when the seed of the word of the Lord goes forth, it never returns void. So I would say I don't think there's anything more you can do. Just keep doing what you're doing. Don't grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time, you will reap a harvest. So I would say that you are their lifeline. So don't stop being their lifeline.
It's a good word.
Yeah.
That's really good. And I'll answer ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto.
I like it.
So that's how I'm going to do it. Ditto. Anybody, what other questions do you have? Over here. Okay.
I'd be curious to hear what Pastor Rick would have to say, but I was a preacher's kid. I grew up a preacher's kid. And so I was made to go to church, and I ended up resenting the church because I was made to go. And so I do think there are times that we tell our kids, get out of bed, you're going to church today. Yeah, but how we do that is important, right? And I think even simple things like the timing, if it's Sunday morning at 8:30 and you're, tell them to get out of bed, we're going to church, versus, hey guys, I got an idea. Sunday, here's what I was thinking. I was thinking we could get up, we could go to church, and then we're going to go and get a steak for lunch. It's gonna be awesome. Try to mash it. It's like, I want to go to that church right now. Let's go. I think my pastor always tells me, man, make church fun. Like, there's a reason they don't want to come. There's something about it, some connotation they have to it that makes it like, eh. So, sometimes take your cough syrup, you put some sugar in it. Like, let's figure out how to let's plan this. Let's think ahead. Okay, guys, next week, here's what I was thinking. I think we should do this and this and this and this and this. The youth group here, I'm sure there's things that they do to attract children. I mean, what are some of your thoughts?
We have a both programs are children and youth are great. So you said something that caught my attention. You said get them back into church. When did you get out of church? That's where I would start. I believe that one of the things your children, especially your daughter at 15, would probably respect is, I think I made a mistake. Is that I wish I hadn't, even though life got busy, made the decision to withdraw from church. And I'm trying my best right now.
It's good
to fix what was broken, to
it's
rebuild.
Really
And would you give it a run with me?
Yep.
Would you give it a run with me?
Some of the most powerful words we have as parents is sorry. And for some reason, a lot of parents don't think they should ever apologize to their kids. I apologize to my kids all the time. I'm like, man, last night I raised my voice at you. I shouldn't have done that. I was out of line. And I'm going to work hard to not raise my voice next time. And I don't think we realize how powerful our words are. If you said, hey, I really need to have a family meeting, let's sit down and talk. And you're probably going to get emotional doing it. And that's a good thing. If you said, I've made mistakes. And list them. I've done this when I shouldn't have done it. I did this when I shouldn't have said it. And I want to get this family back on the right track. And I have a lot of things I'm trying to fix in myself. But one of the things I would like us to do as a family is to start going to church together. And I want to make it fun. So we're every Sunday we're going to do this, and then we're going to barbecue, or we're going to whatever. I don't know what your budget is. But I think combination of those two things is a really great place to start. Yeah.
Thank you. One of our written questions turned in was from somebody who said, look, I've got teenagers. When do I sit down and tell them about how I messed my life up? And the mistakes I made, and the context was like moral. So if you go back to when I was raised in church, how church was how people dress, right? It was. I'm going to dress better than I normally dress because I want to look better than I normally am. And so I make myself have this perfection persona. And it's not real. It's never been real. If we were perfect, we don't need a Savior. You only need a Savior when you're sinful.
Yeah.
And so I think there are age-appropriate conversations that need to happen. If your kid has not looked at you, if you are raising them with Christian values and have not looked at you and said, did you sleep with somebody before you got married? You ain't lived yet. Okay? If you lie then, you're laying a foundation for them to hate everything that God has done in your life. Right? And again, it's age-appropriate. It's age appropriate. Have the difficult conversation and own your brokenness and own God's redemption, because it sure makes God look good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
This is
good.
What you shared Wednesday night about we set a standard that is non-achievable in the lives of our children. I was perfect, and we weren't, but we want them to think that.
It's good. It's really good.
That's really good.
Have questions everywhere now.
Yeah, hold on.
Do the virtual dishes. This is yours. This one's yours.
Oh, great.
I've never been a truck driver.
So I'm going to tell you, I was about 16 or 17, and I was running with some guys that were a lot older than me, and my daddy was gone all the time. First of all, I think it's really hard when your daddy's gone all the time. I'm just straight up telling you, I think it is. And I got into it because I'd come in at 2 or 3 in the morning on a Monday morning. My mom, who's 4'11", full of vim and vigor, was lining me out. And I looked at her, and she said something about Dad, so he's never here. What are you going to do? And so I'm telling you my story of, it may be an antiquated view, but I think there's some things in life that are really hard for a woman to handle, and a teenage boy is one of them. And sometimes a teenage boy needs somebody with hair on his face looking at him and saying, this is what you're going to do. I needed that. So, yeah, I didn't mean that for women who have hair on their face. So sorry about that.
Oh my God.
Sorry. Sorry. My wife is gone. Thank goodness she would be getting me. But you understand that there are times in the life of a young man, and so trying to figure out how you balance those roles is really tough. I don't know how often you check in, and how often you talk to the kids when you check in. And, the person who might be able to give you the best long-term answer to that is probably sitting next to you.
Preach. She moved over. Yeah, I was going to add some of that. I mean, obviously, you do the best with what you got, and the beauty of today is technology is advanced so far, and I'm sure you use some of that, but FaceTiming and, a lot of those things, I'm sure you do all of those, but again, it's tough. I travel a lot. I try to take my kids with me when I can. That may just not be something that's viable in your situation, I'm sure. But I travel a lot and speak, and I try to take my kids with me when I can. And I'll say this, I do think quantity matters, obviously. Quantity is huge, but quality is even bigger. I mean, even if when you're home, say you're home 3 days, if you could have some of the most crazy intentional 3 days that could actually have more impact than a dad who's home 7 days a week, the average dad, that the kid's up playing video games and he's out mowing the lawn and distracted by everything else. And so I think if you focus on quality over quantity in this season, I mean, ultimately, obviously, you want to be home as much as you can, but.
Tyler, I would tell you this. I don't believe, and I see you every week, or every week that you get to be here, I see your family. I don't believe God would have you work a job that would hurt your family. And I believe if you lay this before Him, you lay it before Him and say, God, if my family will benefit, would you open a door for me?
That's good.
And let's try it, right? Let's try it and just see what God can do.
Well, so I've heard that in my household many, many times. My daughter, my daughter is the stubborn one, and she'll always say, "You never get on to Jace. Jace never's in trouble. I'm always in trouble. You treat him differently than you treat me." And so what I always try to tell Corey is, listen, because my son's the same way. My son is his mother's son. My daughter is her father's daughter. Right? That's the problem. I'm like, I can't say anything bad because she's the carbon copy of me. But what I try to explain to her is, what I had to realize is I had to learn the gift sets and how they're different. And then I explained that to my kids. My daughter is right brain. She's musical. She can hear a song and sit down and just play it. She's artistic. She's creative. And so she's very unorganized. Her room looks like a tornado went through it all the time. And so it's not fair for the standard to be both your rooms have to be the same clean. It's not fair. Because my son naturally does that in his genetic wiring. He's like his crazy mama. He just cleans his room for the fun of it, And my daughter, she's just wired differently. So why would I hold the same standard? Now, if it's moral issues or something like that, obviously we're going to have firmer stances. And so I'll literally tell my kids, you're right, I do parent you differently because you're drastically different. Like my daughter, when she was 12, 13, she wanted social media with every fiber of her being. All she cared about was social media, social media, social media. My son is almost 15. He does not give a rip about social media. He doesn't even hardly look at his phone. My daughter lives on her phone. I can't give them the same standards. I can't parent them the same way. I can't give them the same rules. It wouldn't make any sense. So he probably has something way wiser to say. But I don't think you're supposed to parent them the same. I think they're meant to be parented differently.
Which the raise up a child in the way he should go has to do with God's original design and intent of the child. Is that God had an intent for Aubrey, right? And He had an intent for your son. I wrote down though this, and this is one of the greatest things you said, and I'll massacre it, but was understanding what God put in them that we're supposed to leave alone, and what God put in them that we're supposed to correct, and that's where you are.
Yep.
So you got to ask yourself, what's the difference in potential versus responsibility? You may have a daughter who has A grade potential and a son who has C grade potential.
Yep.
If they're both hitting their potential, you've done your job.
That's exactly right.
But if your son's got A grade potential and he wants to be irresponsible, now you know what your job is, right? Is that you're to understand who God gave you. One of the struggles I made as a father was trying to make my kids what I wanted them to be rather than what God created them to be.
That's good.
And most often, if you're a dad, you want them to be like you, which is a horrible mistake. Right? Right? Years and years ago, I loved to hunt, loved to shoot, and I was going to give both my boys a gun for Christmas. And I gave my youngest son a gun, and he cried.
Wow.
He wanted a guitar. And so guess where I was at Christmas?
At the pawn shop, swapping them.
Finding a guitar. But I so wanted him to be like me that I neglected how God
That's good.
made him to be.
Yeah.
And that's where you're at. Back up a little bit. Look at their gifting. Look at how God created them. Don't allow them to be irresponsible.
Yeah.
And your job is to help them live up to their potential.
Yeah. It's good.
And this is every parent with gray hair in this room, is we did the best we could. Did we know every answer? We didn't. Did we make a lot of mistakes? We did. But we didn't intentionally try to make this hard. Our goal was to do the best we could.
I've had that conversation with her.
And she's still distant to you. My answer to that is there's some things in life only God can change.
I know.
And God's in the heart business.
Yeah.
And he can change a heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the prodigal son story, we talked a little bit about that. I'm so fascinated in this father that just waited with his eyes on the horizon. And he was praying and seeking the Lord, patiently waiting. And I know that's the season you're in. I'll give you something really practical that you could try. I do this with my daughter. This is why I think it might work, might not. So I do this thing with my daughter where I bought this really nice journal, like a nice leather journal. And I wrote in it like the first 2 pages. And I said, hey, I love you so much. I want you to know that what I'm writing you right now, no one will ever see. What I want to start with you is a dialogue all the time that goes on for the rest of the time of your life if you want to with your dad. And here's my promise to you. What we write in this journal, we will never talk about face to face, ever. Whatever you want to write in this journal, you will never have to have a conversation to my face with what we say in this journal. Because what I'm trying to get her to do is pour her heart out to me. I want her to trust me. I want her to just spill it out on the pages. And I got to hold up to that promise. She's going to write something in, but hold up. What God did what? I got to hold to this promise. And so I said, when I'm done writing in it, I will lay it on your pillow in your bed when you're at school. And if you want to write it tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, you can keep it in your room as long as you want to keep it. You by no means are you required to write back to me. This can be it if you want it to be it. And guess what happened? 2 days later, it was on my desk in my office. And she wrote in it. So I wrote back and I put it on her pillow. And guess what happened? A week later, it's back on my desk. And it's slow, right? She's not just pouring everything out at once, but it's beginning this great side conversation. And then when I see her in the morning for breakfast, I'm like, hey, babe, how's your day? Good. Good, whatever. You need new tires on your car. Cool. So this is a whole beautiful conversation that her and I know is happening. And so that's something that you might try.
Never heard that before in my life.
Just pour your heart out to her. Just pour your heart out to her.
There's a lot that I need to share with her, but I need her to be open to hear it.
And don't put all that on the first one. She will never write back.
Here's my 3 books.
Yeah, here's 7 journals. Read them when you want. I would do it for 6 months to a year with not a mention of anything that you need to tell her. Just love, I'm sorry I did that. I'm so sorry I did
How
that.
bad I want to have a relationship with
Yeah,
you.
I don't care about any of that. I just want you back. I'll never tell you what to do. I miss my daughter. Yeah. You should need her heart back, because you got to get her heart first. Once you have her heart, the rest will come. I think if you wanted to try something like that, it would have to be in the mail. You mail it. You do something of that nature.
Stamps. Mail it back.
I guess they still use stamps. You can make it as easy as possible for them to return it back. I mean, you could email it. There's other ways to do it. Again, there's so many variables to that. I don't know how inflamed it is, trying to do a face-to-face. I just think people are way more open to conversation. There's something, we become so ingrained that emails are impersonal. Text messages are impersonal. Phone conversations, no one wants to do that. Coffee, I'm not ready for that yet. There's something about a handwritten letter that compels someone to want to know what this says. And I don't know what it is.
I've written her a letter before, but never asked for or suggested.
Ask for it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's worth a try.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really good. Hey, we're at 4:52. We'll have a couple more if we can get it kind of done. Do you have something to say to that, or is it something completely different? Okay.
We've got a bunch. They're all little. We got a kid sitting here with three of the grandkids here. And baby, if you think of anything that needs to be said now, you feel free to say it too.
I don't need to say anything.
I think grandparenting gives you the chance to have a do-over. All that list of stuff that you've got that you wish you hadn't done as a parent. A failure to say you're sorry quick enough, or to be more gentle, more loving. I think it's not uncommon for a grown man to watch his father deal with his kids and ask, where were you when I was little? That you're a different kind of man, and you could have been mean to me when I was your child, and you're so sweet to these kids. Where was that? So it's kind of an opportunity, but it's also a big investment time of your grandchildren will idolize you to some extent. And you have the opportunity to, in a different way than parents, to pour into them spiritual things, manhood things, womanhood things, all the different things, how to do stuff. Because, again, our 30-year-olds are losing that ability because they're so busy with everything, trying to make ends meet. And so spending time with a hammer or whatever with your grandkids. So it's a great opportunity, but you better know your limits. You're not a parent. and it does get confusing at times, because when you really love your grandkids, the lines get blurry. And you're wanting to parent where you're supposed to not parent.
That's good. I'm not adding anything to that. I will say another cool practical thing for parents and grandparents. I'm doing this for my daughter right now. My dad was a pastor, and he's still alive. My dad's amazing, but I have a bunch of his old Bibles. I've got like 5 or 6 of his old Bibles that he would preach from. I open it, every page has just got notes everywhere, and underlined, and circled, and this Hebrew word is just everywhere. And I cherish those so much. And so I thought, why don't I start doing this? And so my daughter will graduate in May from high school. So in May of the last year, I started reading through the Bible in a year with a Bible that I bought for her that has her name embroidered on it. And every day I'm writing notes in it. Corey, this is you. Corey, the Lord's saying this to you. This verse your mom and I lived by. This verse got me through my dissertation and my doctoral program. And I'm just making all of these notes and jotting all of these things. And then on her graduation day, that's going to be her gift. And I'm enjoying it so much that I'm going to do it every year. And every year I'm going to give it to somebody.
To look for the opportunity, not just in the life of your own kids,
Yeah.
but anybody. Anybody to pour into, any young person that you have the opportunity to invest in their life, make it a worthwhile investment.
It's good. It's really good. So what I realized is that, so my son is like his mama. He's very introverted, very quiet. I can just look at my son and he's like, I don't even have to discipline him. He'll straighten up like that, and I can just tell him something and he'll do it. And what I realized about strong-willed children is that they want to know why. That was really the main shift we made. Instead of me saying, hey, I need you to go blank, I would say, hey, come here a second. Sit down. How you doing? Doing good? Yeah, she's very relational, very, very relational. And I would just have to become way more strategic, like a ninja, like a surgical ninja. I actually had to think through parenting before I parented, because she's so smart. She's not book smart, she's street smart. She's going to go far in life, let me just say. So I really just had to start saying, hey, here's why I'm asking you to do this. And I know it's not fun. And I know I'm asking you, telling you your curfew's 11 and all your friends are 11:30, but here's why. Here's why. We're concerned that after 11 and this and this and this and this and this, and I know that's not convenient, and I know that doesn't make you super happy, but can you just help me out with that? Can you help? Okay, Dad. And it went from being a dictator to being relational. Because what would happen is my dictator in me would say, be home by 11. Don't you talk back to me. And then she'd go up, and then I'd go up, and then she'd go up, and then I'd go up, and then she'd go up, and then everyone's crying. And then I'm spending the next 12 hours trying to right my wrongs, you know. I'm upstairs. I'm so sorry I raised my voice at you. My wife's mad at me, and everyone's mad. And if I would have just taken my time and done it relationally, I never lost her heart. I got the same end. Chances are there was some negotiating. It ended up being 11:15. But you see, it's just, I just changed. It is way more, it's way more time consuming. It's way more frustrating. And I think part of it is because I'm a leader, right? I've led a university, I've led churches, I've led hundreds of staff, and I'm used to, when I say it, people do it. And then I get home and I say it and nobody does it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this isn't okay. Somebody's getting fired, you know? So I think being a good dad is just about doing, the shift was, this has to be relational. If I lose her heart, I lose everything. So, yeah.
I'm not sure we're equipped to answer that in this time frame. I'm really not. Because, there's a multitude of conversations that could happen. I had a situation, and I'm not telling you this to discourage you, but my first wife's parents and I did not, in any way, shape, or means, get along. Volatile, and I'm a lot calmer than I used to be. I am a lot calmer than I used to be. And we ended up in counseling. And the counselor looked at me and he said, you're the problem. And he said, you're trying to make up for the hurt your wife experienced and save her, rescue her, and you're coming in on your white horse. And you have become so volatile, she doesn't know what you're going to do to fix this. And so she's scared of you being there. And he looked at me and he said, can you love your in-laws? Well, I'm the pastor. Do I want to? It would have been a different question, but could I? Yeah, can I choose to love them? I can. He said, you're going to have to, because they're not going to change. He said, they're too old, and they've lived this way too long. And so for you to sit down and go, hey, you need to change this, it's not going to happen. Well, so what that did is it set me free from the change train. I'm not going to fix this. It's not going to be fixed this side of heaven. But it set me free to love them Now, I don't know how you communicate to your children. Because, my first response is, let's fix the grandparents. It may be easier to mold the children with grace than it is to change the parents.
Yeah, that's good. For them to have a better understanding. I think what you'll have to figure out how to do, there's a really great book I would recommend by Dr. Henry Cloud. It's called Boundaries. What you're going to have to figure out, we all have to build boundaries, right? And some people we build boundaries for thicker than others, and you're going to have to figure out how to build a boundary between, okay, we can play as long as we're inside these lines. And you're probably going to need to, like he was saying, this is a longer conversation, you probably need to go to a counselor that might help you build a process, how to build these boundaries in a healthy way without severing the relationship with your father. You certainly don't want to do that. But we're going to build healthy boundaries. Those boundaries may look like, hey, we want you to be around the kids in these sort of settings, not alone. I'm not saying that that's one of them. I'm just saying that's an example of something. But you're going to create healthy boundaries for your kids' sake, for your sake, and for his sake, and for your father's sake. Yeah.
Does he grandparent like he parented?
Softer, actually.
Actually better. Wow.
Sadly.
Okay. Yeah, I would make that, again, that's a heart matter. And I will tell you, the power of a child sometimes to look at an adult and go, as one man shared his testimony, I walked in with a beer in my hand, and my son said, Daddy, you drink all the time. Boom. Sometime out of the mouth of babes.
Yeah.
Grandpa, you hurt my feelings, or Grandpa, you're yelling all the time.
Yeah.
Shifts everything. Don't set that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big one.
Yep. It's good.
Hey, thank you guys so much.